Hi team, welcome along to today's show. We're going to talk about rehab for the personal trainer. It's 101 and we're talking with an expert that's going to help us understand what's required and how we can apply it into our services when we're out there with clients. Coming up straight after this. Hey guys, welcome to FFP Podcast. We've got a big show for you today. It's all about rehab. It's all for the personal trainer, the application, the understanding, and the knowledge. And to do this, I've brought in a man who is well versed with rehab, with over 15 years experience. He's also an educator, teaching, coaching trainers all around the region, all around probably the globe. We're about to find out more about him, but he's an absolute specialist. You need to hear what this man has to say. Please welcome to the show, Hep Rebellion. Mate, how are you?
Hey Grant, I'm good. So I'm just so happy to be in your show. And I'm looking forward to go down the road. Is this what, a 30-minute, 1 hour, or 1 day show?
Oh, probably 10 days. 10 days later, mate, we'll still be here. So that's how it's going to work. We're going to jump straight into it. Let's quickly find out more about you, your background, so people understand the experience and the depth of knowledge that you do have. Where did it all start for you in the rehab circle?
Okay, by default, I'm what you call your structural osteopath. Okay, and I'm also your musculoskeletal physiotherapist, and at the same time, I'm your fitness coach, rolled into one. So if you're going to look at that three aspects, I'm more on focus on movement, okay? Movement options, movement health. Okay, so that's why I love my career of being a fitness coach, because I can wear the other two shoes. I can help more people, especially with injuries, acute ones, chronic ones, inpatients, outpatients, and I think this is where the fitness industry is going.
Yep.
To being a part of the healthcare team, or an extension being. Yeah,
100%. I was about to say the man in movement, which is your hashtag in movement. So that works out absolutely perfectly. Today's topic is rehab for the personal trainer. Where do you see rehabilitation and PT trainers merging?
Well, the thing is that we have to discuss first the scope of practice. Okay, like I mentioned earlier when we're chatting that as coaches, we're not trying to be physiotherapists or medical or rehab specialists. What we're trying to be is for us to cater to the outpatients who has just finished their physiotherapy sessions. Okay? And this big number of this group who who's been neglected, especially on our side. We can just say, oh yeah, I can manage you, I can manage your lower back, I can manage your ankle sprain, I can manage your hip pain. But the thing is that how versed are we into managing that?
So then what would be the process that a client or a patient can go through when they're going from a specialist to a personal trainer?
Okay. I'm assuming that most of the coaches or the exercise professionals are not aware that there are stages in rehabilitation. Okay, from an injury happening, seeing a specialist and creating a rehab program for this person. So it all goes down into 4 stages. So you have your phase 1 or stage 1, stage 2, stage 3, and stage 4. Now, the stage 1 and stage 2 is more on the clinical aspect, because you have more of the physios activating muscles, educating movement control, coordination, balance, proprioceptive training, and putting it all into data, all the paperwork. Now, the stage 3 and stage 4 is where we can actually come in, because this is what we do on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah.
Giving out sets, reps, and loading exercise. Stage 3 and stage 4 is more on loading exercises. Yes. But on the other hand, most of the medical community is now really trusting exercise professionals.
Hmm.
Most likely, their thought process is that the exercise coaches lack an in-depth understanding of how to continue what they have started in stage one and stage two.
Hmm.
Either the coaches might aggravate
Yeah,
the
totally.
injury, right,
Yeah.
or just you know get the patient back to zero. Okay, that's why rehab skill, upskilling or rehab education, even the basics is a must for exercise coaches.
So that's a good point.
Mhm.
So a good question to follow up from that would be, how do you bridge the gap, or do you need to bridge the gap more, or does it need to be a new occupation or a space for a new type of trainer or specialist to come in between to help with that transition? Because ultimately it's for the client to get better, recover, and get,
Mhm.
if not 100%, 110%.
Mhm. Like I've said, like for example, I'm not a physiotherapist, I'm just a fitness coach. And my passion is rehab. I'm interested. Okay, since being a physical therapist or a physiotherapist is a licensed profession, I need to study and pass the boards,
Yeah.
right? But on the other hand, since I'm like, let's say I'm a fitness coach who's been in the industry for the last 10, 15 years, and I wanted, this is interesting. I want to go in depth into rehab, but financially I cannot go to the
Expensive.
university and
Yeah.
spend on that exactly. So how do you get into practicing rehab without spending money? Well, you have to attend rehab courses that teaches you assessment, okay, or even like how to prescribe therapeutic exercises,
Yeah.
or how to or even how to like continue the stage 3 and stage 4,
Hmm. Man,
the loading stages.
there's already, like you pointed out, stage 1, 2, 3, 4. There's a lot for trainers to learn, to understand. And I suppose I'm now thinking about it for all the people listening and watching. What is the first step in your mind that as trainers we need to take? But like learning, yes.
As an education,
Courses, yes. But what would be the first thing you need to learn? Like, because there's so much diversity too within rehab. Do you need to pick a
yes.
specialization rehab and then build a network and just refer out, or where would you recommend someone as a trainer going like, hey, look, I can't do everything?
I would, without budget wise, without spending money, I would advise them to go back to their level 2 or level 3 personal training manual, because there's anatomy there.
Yeah.
I would advise them to go in depth into the functional anatomy side of it.
Totally.
Okay, because like for example, chronic injuries. Most of my colleagues, trainers, are asking me, how do you actually create programs for chronic injuries? Okay, so one thing with chronic injuries is that since the body has turned to abnormal movement patterns, therefore you need to go back to the normal movement patterns. Okay, so how would you know that? By just knowing your functional anatomy.
You seem to be
Mhm.
touching on a point here, and I don't want to insult or upset anybody out there, but with the influx of PTs, fitness coaches in the industry, um, it nearly seems like there's a bit of just, here's your education, learn what you can, get out there, get the rest of the experience. Um,
Yes, yes.
you've seen there's a bit of a lack, or not maybe lack, but a gap in the education of the trainers out there currently. They need to go back and, like I said, get back to the basic, the fundamentals. Do you know where the origins and
Mm.
insertions of a muscle are? Do you know how that works? Do you know the
Yeah.
basic simplicities?
I have to be honest. I have to be honest, Grant. I'm sorry to cut you. When I was in the university, I hate the origin, insertion, and action part of anatomy.
Yeah.
Because there's so much to memorize. But along the way, as cases has been presented in front of my face, different types of clientele, I get to understand the value and the relevance of the action, especially the action of that muscle. Mhm.
I've got to totally agree, because ultimately, at the end of the day, if you don't understand the fundamentals, functionality of a muscle, how are you supposed to understand what the benefits are, what can benefit you, how to really get them or maximize a movement technique? I think it is a bit of a massive space that needs to be filled
Mhm.
somewhere. And if
Mhm.
you're going to go into rehab, and I don't want to say this as it's generalized, but rehab means you've got to go into deeper detail. So you've got to have that
Mhm.
fundamental understanding of the basics and a solid
Yes.
fundamental understanding. So
Mm.
with trainers, let's say, okay, you've got the fundamentals, you understand exactly what you're supposed to be doing, at least from a PT point of view. Now you're going to go down
Mhm.
the rehab direction. You want to look to specialize. Is there a specialization
Mhm.
within rehab that trainers can go into that would be a good way to start? Is it sports? Is it injury? Is it elderly? Is it special cases? Where do you think that lies?
Well, they have to. We're still talking about the basic. Okay. So now they got their functional anatomy covered. Then they need to be accustomed to soft tissue injury management. Of how is that? The physiology of that, the pathomechanisms of what's happening in an injury. Because the thing with getting an injury and getting an abnormal movement pattern, if you know how to reverse engineer that,
Yeah.
going back to its normal function, then you're going to be a great coach,
Yeah. 100%.
right?
100%.
So it's
There's
more
no
like
two ways about
learning.
it.
Exactly, it's more like from a normal person without an injury getting injured. If you know the process, then you can actually go back.
Yeah, totally.
That's why the basics are very important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So it's number two is getting acquainted with soft tissue injury management. Okay, these are your sprains, your strain, or your soft tissues injuries.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we're not talking about those acute one that you need to actually like see a specialist right away and have a surgery. We're
Yeah.
talking about what happens in a gym setting.
Yep.
Yeah, because this doesn't fall under our scope of practice. Our scope of practice would at least somehow acknowledge that there's a soft tissue injury and how we can actually assess this without aggravating the injury while the client or the person is in the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, and how we can help this person manage it. Either we refer it or we advise or recommend something that wouldn't, or would protect the injury itself during
Yeah.
the first 24 hours, 36, 72, all
100%.
this stuff.
I
Yeah.
agree. So the assessment would be the space that you need to at least start off. I think as a trainer, and I don't want to say my age, but it's been a while. It's been a few experiences, and definitely I didn't choose to go down that road. I didn't choose to go that way, but definitely I think if I was curious or wondering, is this a space for me to go into, then at least understanding assessment would be the fundamentals for that. Like, yes, the basics are there, but how do you assess injuries better? Would you agree?
Yes, yes. Like for example, I mean, sprain and strains. They are like gradings. To assess that, you need to understand what is grade one, grade two, and grade three,
Yeah.
and then you can move forward to that. Mhm.
It is surprising that how many people don't know what a grade one, a grade two, or a tier, a strain. They don't know the difference between them. And they work in a profession in a gym space where this is very common.
Exactly.
It happens all the time. And I think as a trainer, if you want to excel or stand out above the crowd, then definitely this is a space and a simple space to be in that you can start to
Mhm.
grow some foundations. When it comes to sport's a growing thing anywhere in the world. Everyone loves sports. Everyone wants to play sports. There's a lot of astro here, and a lot of people do get injuries. They get a lot of MCL, ACL, knee problems, ankles, hips, back. It's very, very common here. I think mostly due to the hard surfaces that are available to play on. I know we're talking about rehab. Is there something that coaches or PTs should be applying as a prehab side of things for these sportsmen?
Yeah, I mean, if we are going to define rehabilitation, or we can define it in two ways: preventive and restorative. Okay, that's your prehab, your preventive. Restorative is that after getting an injury, then you restore the person's normal physical function.
Yeah.
Yeah. So in sports injury, I mean, if I'm going to ask myself as a personal trainer, how many athletes have I come face to face with and trained and created programs? Okay. If I had a few over the last 5 years, maybe I have 10, then my data or set of information into creating programs will not be sufficient enough to actually uh, make it better for this athlete. Okay, so it's more on it's like an experience. I was talking to some of my physio friends in New York. Okay, and sometimes they would ask me for an exercise program. I said, "You're a physio. You should be well versed with an exercise program, especially for yourself."
Yeah.
So
Go for a run.
thing was that
Lift a weight. Come on.
exactly. The thing is that they're well versed in the clinical setting, but not really in the physio.
Yep.
Fitness side of things.
Yeah.
Okay, that's why there's a room for physios to go down to the fitness industry, and then there's a room for the exercise coaches to go to the rehab practice, and we can all meet there.
Yeah.
That gap.
Yep.
Yeah.
100%.
It's more on the education and skills where we can all meet there. It's for the benefit of the patient, actually, or the person.
Throughout, 100%. Here's this thing, when you just said before, you talked about how it's expensive, the course is more expensive, you go into detail, there's so much more learnings and knowledge you've got taken as a student, but there's also, when you come out the other end, there's benefits from the financial point of view as well. So
Yes.
people may be thinking, is it expensive? Yeah, it can be considered expensive, but if you want to play, I don't want to say in the big game or the more
Yes. You can term it a big game.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the word to actually use for that, but if you are more knowledgeable, if you are becoming a specialist or heading in that direction, then your value goes up and your rates go up as well, and you become more in demand because you start to stand out from the crowd. So where is it for you that we as trainers need to go or push when it comes to how do I change from a PT potentially into someone who's better adversed at rehab?
Okay, so going back with my colleagues, my personal trainer friends. So when they asked me, Hep, how many certificates do you have? So I'm gonna go back. Is it the fitness certificates and qualifications, or my medical and rehab qualifications? So I have a number of them, and they were all saying, "But you have spent a lot of money on that." Hey, everyone said, "Look, I did not spend all this in 1 year. I counted years, I counted years and save up money for me to educate myself. Because my goal is, I'm quite curious about this. I want to learn this, okay, but I cannot afford this. Maybe I can save up in 1 year or 2 years or 3 years."
No,
Okay, so that's how I manage.
I think you've already touched on a point as well, that when you look at it, a lot of people don't seem to understand. It does take money to make money as well. And if you're not investing in yourself, if you're not investing in the right areas, then you're going to stay where you are. You're going to stay stagnant. You're going to remain in the same space. You're not going to grow. You're not going to progress. And you're probably going to have a short-term career. So you need to, it's essential to reinvest in yourself, in your knowledge, in your practice to be able to go forward. And rehab definitely is a great space because, as you've pointed out, there's a lack of knowledge within trainers or a lack of ability from trainers to be able to really provide the service that's required for so many people out there.
Yes.
If the coach has an assessment, they've got the ability to deliver assessments. Let's say that's step one. First, understand how to assess properly from that point of view. Then you can refer out, or you may have a basic level where you can start the process. Let's say you are an assessment level, I want to say. What is it for you? What is it the next level 2 after the assessment? where you should have? What should you have in your arsenal or your backpack of skill sets that you can apply? What's level 2 for you?
Okay, the key word there is pain. Okay, you're gonna have to ask first the person in front of you if there is pain. Then you have to scale, that pain level. So where does this pain happen? Which kind of movement? I mean, is this like during the day, at night? Uh, when you sit down, when you walk, does it like hinder you to function efficiently? So all this stuff that you need to like just ask, and then you observe how this body move. You observe posture. You observe asymmetry because it's a telltale sign of muscle imbalance. Yeah, and then sometimes us trainers are all guilty. Oh, if you cannot do an overhead squat properly, it's like a muscle imbalance, weakness of this, and then stronger side, weaker side. But how about movement control?
100%.
How about movement control? Maybe the reason why this person can't go on an overhead squat, maybe he lacks control.
So,
Perspective.
So here's a thought, just on that thought. How important is it as a more of a specialist to be able to do the movements correctly or have that proper movement ability as an individual?
Mm.
Is it more
I think
knowledge
we
or practical application, like practicability? Sorry.
Well, you have to have that knowledge first, so you can be practical later on. Yeah. Because have you been like a police technique? I mean, an exercise police wherein you go to the gym. Oh, that's wrong. He's doing it wrong. He's doing it right. Something like that. I mean, during our earlier stage.
Earlier days I did, and now I'm just like, oh, jeez. I'll look the other way.
No, but the thing is that, one example is that not everyone would be squatting the same way, right? Maybe due to the structure, their hip structure, because most of us will have different, hip joint structures. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So if we're gonna ask this person to squat like a textbook squat, okay, and this person cannot do that, but the other person can, okay, so who are we to blame?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it simply comes down to you as a brand. If you're telling people to do stuff, if you're well enough healthy, you should be able to show, demonstrate, so you can
Yes.
back up your words and your knowledge. If you can show, yeah, this is how it is. This is why that should be there. I think it's really important more for you as a person if you want to stand out. Not so much, is it essential, but I think it only becomes essential when you think about your business, your brand, and your longevity within the industry. That's what my kind of thought on it is. Where?
It's more on like it's more like being practical.
Yeah.
It's more on being practical. We need, especially when you teach techniques or exercises, or you do an assessment. It's more on you being practical, based on the objective that you should be, or this person should be functional. This person should be able to sit down and stand up comfortably on a chair. This person should be able to walk up and down the stairs comfortably. This person should be able to do forward lunges comfortably. Okay. So when comfort is there, then you start going into details. How's the knee when it goes to lunges? How's the upper trunk when it goes into lunges? Is there like maybe a forward translation, or is it still upright? So you can all put all these small details. That's why it's called a personalized program. Depends now on your objective. And this is what physiotherapists do as well in the clinic when they decide programs. It needs to be justified. Okay, so, and this is a good word, justification of the exercises. I think I'm not saying all exercise coaches would go down to this cookie cutter programming. Yes. Okay. That I would tell my Look, I'm sorry, guys. Those who's gonna be listening to this, we're not bashing, but we're just being more on the objective side of it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's for us just to
okay. So
mm,
let me
it's
think
for
of
us.
this from a rehab. You're talking about programming. Obviously, you have more knowledge, you have more skills. There's a basics. You got the assessment. You helping them bring back movement into, or first of all, sorry, to navigate and help assist with the injury recovery to get to a point. I think there's a bit of a grey line because from a client's perspective, they're willing and they want to get back quickly. They want to be doing what they're doing before fast. And so sometimes the feedback from a client to the trainer is probably a little false. How do we as trainers, is there, what did he say? Is there red flags that would stand out for you to notice that, hey, they're not progressing as quickly as they're telling me, or I'm not seeing something? Is there common things you've seen?
So it's yeah, this is a very common. The I mentioned about soft tissue injury management earlier. Okay, that we should be acquainted with. Okay, and one part of this injury management is client or patient education. Okay, like for example, tissues would heal differently. Like muscles would heal differently. It's gonna take either weeks or months. Same with tendons, bones, ligaments. So sometimes when we educate our clients, hey, look, you have an ACL tear, grade 3, okay, and you haven't done any surgery. It's a non-operative surgery, okay. So if you're looking back to going into your sports, football, I don't think 1 year is going to be sufficient. Okay,
That's a hard
right?
conversation to
So
have,
you
right?
need to have that exactly. I mean, sometimes we're as coaches we're so eager to close the sale.
Yeah.
The PT says, "Yeah, I can help you with that in 3 months."
You've
But what
just
happens after 3 months?
totally, and you've hit on a very good point right there, and it's something that I've seen more and more here in the industry. Is that's exactly what happens, and then when this happens, it really disrupts, breaks your brand as a trainer, because what happens is you've promised something, you haven't delivered on that promise. Next thing you know,
Yes.
someone's talking
Yes.
about you saying, hey, you told me this, you were absolutely way out of your league, you're out of your depth, shouldn't have done that, should have referred beyond. Whereas as a trainer, you should be thinking longevity. You should be thinking, hey, look, this is out of my scope, I need to refer you on. And then you have someone who's going to go away, get that rehab, and most likely come back to you because of the honesty and the relationship you can have with this client.
Correct. Correct. It's more on the trust, actually. It's more on
Yeah.
the trust.
Yes. Agreed.
It's like a consumer trusting one brand.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Uh,
How important then?
so this is
Sorry, Karen.
yeah. Go on.
I was saying, how important is it to have this network of not necessarily one type of specialist, but preferably maybe a few specialists, like for a trainer? Would you recommend, look, grab a network of 5, 6 different specialists, 10, 20, I don't know, depends on what you're thinking, or is it
The more,
better,
the more, the merrier.
more the merrier, 100%.
The more, the merrier.
Then how
Like
much?
for example, in my
Yeah, Karen, you go.
like for example, I would always use this example in my soft tissue injury management workshops. Like there's this Doctor A and Doctor B. Okay, Doctor A is your typical clinical doctor who doesn't actually exercise or is not active. It's from the clinic home. Okay, and then there's Doctor B. Your Doctor B is the more active one who goes to the gym, exercise, workouts, do cycling, swims, snowboard, skis, whatever. Okay, let's say they're both orthopedics specialists. Okay, so there's going to be a slight variation of how the recovery process that they would be advising their patients. One would be more on an active recovery. One would be more on a passive recovery. Most likely, I'm not bashing, the doctors who are like Dr. A, but I mean, at this point in time, okay, there's a lot of Dr. B's now,
Yeah.
which which is like I'm very happy that they're leaning towards movement as medicine.
Mhm.
Yeah. Mm.
I
So
want
that
to
is the thing.
I want to close this gap between PTs, and we actually that flew past. We've actually run out of time. But what is a book, a person, a space, a reading that you can recommend for trainers that are interested, curious in rehab movement? Where do they go first? Can you have any references from yourself? Besides you,
There's a
ask
lot
you.
well, if they really wanted to do this, so there's a lot of free stuff, in the internet. Go back to your anatomy. There's like a big book of anatomy. Okay, they can read on that, especially shoulders and hips, commonly injured in the gym.
Yeah.
Okay, so they read on those anatomy and how it works. Because give themselves like 3 months just reading on these areas. I'm very sure that they'll be very good coaches when it comes to designing shoulder exercises and hip exercises.
Mhm.
And another thing, I'm not sure I can promote books here.
Yeah,
Okay.
absolutely. Yep.
I'm not promoting actually, but um, I like Nodi Aguilar. I
Yep.
like Nodi Aguilar's functional patterns. Okay, because he made use of fascia in a practical way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because I was emailing him like 7 years ago that I had to congratulate him because I'm just so happy that he's like using sling patterns to actually improve scoliosis.
Mm.
And the rehab world really doesn't have anything,
On it.
to attack scoliosis. And he has done a good job. He's not even a physiotherapist, but
Yeah.
he has done a lot of reading on sling patterns. And that's the practical side of it, applying it towards a case like scoliosis.
Totally.
Okay. So something like that. And medical terminologies. If they can find a book about medical terminologies, please do. Why? Why? I think they have experienced that, one day a person or a client came to them, hey, look, I just finished my physio sessions and I have this exercise prescription and I have this medical report, and hands it over to the coach. And then the coach, what is this? What is this? What is this word? Yes. So, I mean, it's going to help.
Yeah.
It's going to help them.
Knowledge is the
To be
key to
familiar.
wisdom and to progress in life. I 100% agree with that. Mate, we have come to the end of the time, and there's a lot of points that you've pulled out and you've described, and you've given many action points for these trainers. Throw your handle in there again. I'll show you. It's just up online here. We're going to pull it up. It's maninmovement_OG. Follow on Instagram. Reach out, ask them questions, because this is a big space, especially from my side. I think it's a huge opportunity for people, especially with the growing number of trainers. I mean, there is a lot of trainers doing education. There's a lot of trainers falling out of the industry within the first year, but there's still more trainers, coaches coming into the space. And if you want to stand out, you need to look at options like this, because, hey, progress is the key to life. It's one of the best things we can do for ourselves and for our
To life,
clients.
yeah.
Yeah, I love learning. I love progressing. So I'm learning the technical side as well. There we go. Hep, no, it's been an absolute pleasure, mate. Thank you very much for your time. Remember, guys, reach out to him. Hep, any last words?
Well, feel free to send me a message at my handle in IG. And then I have this project. It's called Train Rehab. Okay, so once there's a green light, there will be educational courses and free workshops there
Amazing.
to kickstart your rehab journey.
Perfect.
Okay, I'm not saying it's going to be expensive. I'm not going to say it's going to be cheap, but it's on like you invest your time there and we all progress forward.
Brilliant. Absolutely. Look forward to that coming out,
Yeah.
mate. Thank you very much. We'll put that in the description. We'll make sure people have a link to that. But again, reach out to Hep. You'll be able to ask them directly. But until the next podcast, see you guys next time. We discuss more to help you learn, help you develop.